After saving his mother in the season 2 finale, Barry adjusted his life in the alternate timeline. While trying to get to know Iris, he witnesses another version of the Flash going against another speedster named Rival. It is revealed that Barry has been keeping Eobard locked up after defeating him while his parents are alive and well. Eobard warns him that he's only living a fantasy world and that eventually time would catch up to them. While living his new life, Barry finds out that Joe is not fond of him and is against his budding relationship with Iris. During their date, Barry begins to lose memories from his past life. He and Iris separate after hearing about another confrontation between the Flash and Rival. Barry ends up saving the Flash after Rival gains the upper hand. He unmasks the speedster to find that it is Wally. After an awkward conversation, Barry learns how Wally got his powers. The siblings bring him to Remote Industries where they find Cisco, who is a successful tech mogul. Barry tries to ask for his help in taking down the Rival. He begins to lose more memories during the conversation. He tries to get answers from Thawne, who tells him that soon enough everything he knew will fade due to the continued use of his speed. He decides to reveal himself as the Flash to Iris, Wally, and Cisco to take down Rival. He finds and brings in Caitlin to complete the team. Barry and Wally team up and confront Rival at the Prescott Sawmill. He tells him that his real name is Edward Claris before going head to head with Wally. Wally is critically wounded after being stabbed with a metal rod. Barry overpowers Edward but loses focus after more memories are erased. Edward creates 2 cyclones and nearly defeats Barry. After a motivational speech by Iris, he stops the cyclones and defeats Edward. Joe kills Edward after he tries to attack Barry one last time. He and Joe bring Wally back to Remote Industries where they find he isn't healing. Barry realizes that everyone's suffering for his happiness, so he says his goodbyes to his parents. He agrees to let Eobard kill his mother so the original timeline will be restored. Just before Eobard parts, he hints that Barry's life will seem different. He reunites with the West, but finds out Iris is no longer in contact with the family. Edward Claris wakes up in the middle of the night and hears a voice call out to him. He walks to his mirror to see the word alchemy being scratched onto it. What has Barry done now? What are the consequences brought upon by Flashpoint? Will the team be back together? Will Barry ever be happy? Will we see Jay Garrick? When will we see Dr. Alchemy and Savitar? And what will happen to this timeline's Edward Claris? Let's find out on the next episode of The Flash. Barry runs to Star City and tells Felicity about his decision to save his mom and how it changed the timeline. He explains that everyone has been acting different ever since he returned and doesn't know why. Barry finds out that in this timeline, Joe never told Iris about her mother, which explains the distance between them. Back at the CCPD, Barry meets with Julian Albert, a fellow forensic scientist who he has apparently been working with for a while. Barry finds Cisco at a support group and learns that his brother Dante died, which is why Cisco has been acting cold. Barry panics when he sees that everyone's lives have been altered after seeing a picture of John and his son Diggle Jr. Edward Claris continues to have strange visions and is brought to Dr. Alchemy, who promises to give him back his speed. Barry, Joe, and Julian investigate a crime scene involving husks, where a small rivalry is shown between them. Back at the lab, Barry asks Caitlin for help in getting everyone together so that they can all work things out once and for all. He ends up tricking everyone into having dinner at the West household. He suggests that they do something together as a team. They're interrupted after an alert goes off from the metahuman app. Barry confronts Edward Claris at the boardwalk, who tells him that he remembers the alternate timeline. They race and fight throughout the city, with Barry gaining the upper hand. Edward escapes, and Barry returns back to Star Labs. He decides that he needs to change the timeline again, but is stopped by Jay Garrick while running in the Speed Force. He tells Barry that Harry told him everything. He says that he made the same mistakes Barry made and is trying to help him move forward. Barry returns and tells everyone about Flashpoint. The news upsets Cisco, who wishes Barry would go back to save his brother. Barry asks Julian for help so that he can find Claris. He traces him back to the Prescott Sawmill, where he is ambushed by Edward and Dr. Alchemy. Back at Star Labs, Iris tries to get everyone to forgive Barry for his mistakes. Edward removes Barry's comm links, making it hard for the team to contact him. Edward gains the upper hand and nearly kills Barry, but Cisco arrives to save him. They team up and defeat Edward. At Star Labs, the team tries to figure out who Dr. Alchemy is and how he got his powers. Once everyone leaves, Caitlin displays metahuman abilities similar to Killer Frost. Back at the Flash. Barry prepares to go on his first date with Iris, but not before exchanging words with Julian. On the date, they're interrupted by an alert sent by Cisco to go to Star Labs. They arrive just in time to see Harry and Jesse come through the breach. Jesse is shown to be a speedster, so the team goes to the speed lab to test her capabilities. Barry notices that Wally is upset that he hasn't gotten any abilities like Jesse, so he has Joe talk to him. Meanwhile, a teenager named Frankie is being abused by her foster father, which triggers her other half named Magenta, who has metal manipulation powers. She seriously injures her foster father, who is then sent to the hospital. Back at the CCPD, Barry apologizes to Iris for their lackluster date and promises to make up for it. Joe is then shown talking to Frankie, who claims that she cannot remember the attack. Julian believes that she and the other metahumans are connected, so he takes a DNA sample from her. He confronts Frankie and tries to make her confess to attacking her foster father. Her other side takes control and attacks Julian. Barry's able to save him and chases after Frankie. She tells him that her other persona Magenta is taking over and proceeds to attack him before escaping. Back at the lab, Harry finds out Barry changed the timeline once again and scolds him. Shortly after, Jessie has a falling out with Harry when she realizes that he was trying to get Caitlin to convince her not to be a hero like Barry. Wally tries to talk to her and finds out that she essentially jump-started her powers, so he tries to do the same. He jumps in front of a car, but is saved by Jesse. An infuriated Barry tells Wally not to be stupid and to be thankful he doesn't have any powers. The team finds out from Iris that Magenta is planning to kill her foster father and everyone at the hospital he is at. Barry rushes to stop her from dropping a cargo ship on it. Jesse shows up to help after encouragement from her father. Barry is able to talk Magenta out of hurting everybody and brings her back to Star Labs. Frankie then tells the team more about Dr. Alchemy and how he contacted her through her dreams. She also confirms her theory of him giving people back their powers they had in the alternate timeline. They let her go and tell her that they have found her a better foster home in Keystone City. Harry tells Jesse that he's proud of her and embraces the fact that she wants to be a hero like Barry before revealing a suit to her that he and Cisco had worked on, made from Trajectory's old costume with the Flash insignia. Barry and Iris decide to let the relationship find its own way after finally having a proper date. Back at the CCPD, Julian shows Barry and Joe footage of Claris being attacked, then killed at Iron Heights by an unseen assailant. Will Wally be jealous that Jesse is going to be Barry's sidekick? How long will Harry and Jesse stay? Will Wally become the bad guy, Daniel West style? Will he become the Reverse Flash? When will Caitlin tell the team about her powers? We can't wait for Mirror Master next episode. What is Dr. Alchemy's true purpose of giving these people metahuman abilities? Find out on the next episode of The Flash. A flashback to the night of the particle accelerator shows Snart and the new team of rogues, including Sam Scudder and Rosa Dillon. The two decide that they want out, resulting in Snart attacking them. He overpowers them both, but just as he is about to deliver the final blow, the particle accelerator goes off. Snart and his men escape, but Scudder is hit by the dark matter wave, as is Rosa, but he passes through a mirror. Years later, Scudder makes his way back to the world from the mirror dimension, looking for both Snart and Rosa. He attacks and kills Snart's men, using his mirror warping abilities. Barry and the team continue to train Jessie so she can master her speed. They realize that she has a lot to work on, but Harry wants to go back to their Earth. Harry, Caitlin, and Cisco work on finding another Wells to take his place when he leaves. Jessie and Wally get to know each other better, but Wally feels that they cannot have a relationship because she is leaving. The team hears about Scudder and his mission to get revenge on Snart, so they work on trying to find him. Harry names Scudder Mirror Master and Rosa Top. After Joe and Cecile question Rosa, who is locked up, Scudder appears and breaks Rosa out. She shows Scudder the ability she obtained from the dark matter wave, which is to bend reality. Barry has a hard time being intimate with Iris when Joe is around, each time being more awkward than the last. Iris insists that he talk to Joe about it. Cisco, Caitlin, and Harry look through the lineup of Harrison Wells from other Earths, but cannot seem to agree on one. Jessie finally joins Barry to stop a robbery where they find Scudder and Rosa. The speedsters chase the new rogues throughout the city, and Jessie is defeated by Rosa. Barry saves her from falling to her death, but Scudder traps him in a mirror. The team tries to figure out what Barry is saying as everything in the mirror is backwards. They then work on finding a way to free him. Cisco proposes that they ask help from Earth 19 Wells, much to Harry's annoyance. Barry takes the time to apologize to Iris for not handling their dating situation the right way. Harry then uses the molecular decelerator he made with Cisco and Caitlin, but it doesn't work. They then get an alert that involves Scudder and Rosa. Caitlin uses her metahuman abilities to speed up the process by freezing the mirror enough to the point that Barry can shatter it. Barry and Jessie head to confront the two. When they arrive at their hideout, Barry uses a hologram of Snart to draw them out. He outsmarts Scudder by trapping him in an infinite loop of mirrors, while Jessie easily overpowers Rosa. They are then taken to Iron Heights. Cisco, Caitlin, and Harry agree to bring Wells from Earth 19 to replace him. Harry introduces the eccentric Wells to the team, but before he leaves, he tells Cisco that the device didn't work and that something else froze the mirror. Barry decides it's best that he moves out, to which Joe and Iris agree. At her home, Caitlin begins to experience physical changes. Her hair turns white and her lips begin to turn blue due to her powers becoming more potent. Why is there a giant group chasing after the team next episode? Will Earth 19 Wells be an asset to the team? What will happen to Harry and Jessie? Will they ever come back? When will we see Jay Garrick again? When will Dr. Alchemy come back to play? Will Wally become the show's version of the Reverse Flash, aka Daniel West? Find out in the next episode of The Flash. Dun, 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 Barry stays at Cisco's while he looks for a place for himself. While he's there, Cisco tells Barry about his suspicions of HR, but Barry tells him to give him a chance. At Star Labs, they try to get used to having him part of the team, so HR suggests they do some team-building exercises. Meanwhile, Caitlin visits her mother, Dr. Tannhauser, in hopes to get some answers about her growing abilities. Back at the CCPD, after being reported by Julian to sing, Barry gets a call from Cisco telling him that there is a metahuman attack in the city. Once he gets there, he finds a giant monster terrorizing it. Barry finds Iris helping people who are trapped in a bus, and then the monster vanishes into thin air. He goes back to the lab, where he, Cisco, and HR try to figure out what it is. Barry then leaves Cisco with HR while he gets to get help from Julian. Back at her mother's lab, they test her limits of her abilities, which seem to keep getting stronger. When they discover that she has absorbed massive amounts of energy, Dr. Tannhauser turns her daughter into a test subject. They end up arguing when they talk about how their relationship became strained when her father died. When Caitlin tries to leave, an employee named Nigel tries to keep her at the lab, causing Caitlin to attack him. Her mother calms her down and apologizes for not being there when she should have, and lets her go. At the CCPD, Barry tricks Julian into mentoring him so that he can get information. They manage to find a pattern in the monster's movements and stumble upon it. Barry then saves Julian when he is nearly killed from an exploding transformer, which seems to go off when the monster is around. Back at the CCPD, Julian confides in Barry that the reason that he doesn't like metahumans is because he believes that their powers are being wasted. After Iris talks to Joe about his love life, Singh tells them that they have a lead on where the monster will strike next. At Star Labs, Barry and Cisco think that there's something off with HR, so they decide to vibe him. They're confronted by him when they're going through his belongings, so he tells them that he is a scientist and a novelist. Caitlin then arrives in time to help the team with the monster. Barry uses specially designed rope made of carbon fiber that the monster runs right through, revealing it to be a giant hologram. During the commotion, Cisco realizes that HR is not really a genius, explaining his inability to understand anything that the team is doing. Back in the city, Barry saves an innocent civilian from a gunshot fired by the CCPD when the bullet goes through the monster. He tells them all to stand down. He then hurries to save Julian, who has found the real culprit, revealed to be a young boy, who Joe talks to. Back at Star Labs, HR apologizes for his deception and reveals that he's just the face of his scientific organization. He had come to finally make a difference, so the team allows him to stay and prove himself. Caitlin tells Cisco about visiting her mother and feels like they're finally making progress. Barry and Julian finally find some common ground after opening up to one another. Caitlin then gets a video message from her mother telling her that the continued use of her powers will make it impossible to reverse the effects it is having on her body. She has another violent outburst and her powers seem to be getting more powerful. Could Savitar be a fused Wally and Julian? Could Dr. Alchemy be Eddie Thawne? Or is it just Julian Albert's doppelganger? How is Barry going to undo this mess that he's made? When will we get this Dominator tie-in for all the DC TV shows? Will Caitlin Snow take up the mantle as Killer Frost? And how will the team save her? Find out on the next episode of The Flash. Wally tells Joe about his dreams of being Kid Flash, leading him to worry about his son, coming into contact with Dr. Alchemy. At the CCPD, Barry is made a full-time member of the Metahuman Crime Unit by Cecile, to Julian's surprise. Joe appears and tells Barry about the situation with Wally, but Barry promises that everything will be okay. HR tries to impress Cisco and Caitlin by trying to have Star Labs have a museum as a front to throw people off of the fact that they work with the Flash. A random businessman is attacked by a large shadow figure. Barry and Julian investigate the murder and believe it to be another metahuman. Joe tells Barry to help him look for Wally because he is worried that he may try to contact Alchemy. At Star Labs, HR shows Cisco and Caitlin a way for him to disguise himself so that he can be the face of Star Labs. Cisco confiscates the tech and only promises to give it back until HR returns his dampening cuffs, which Caitlin actually took. Barry meets with the team and asks for their help with Shade, the shadow meta. Harry tells him that they had a similar meta on their Earth, and then Barry tells him about Wally's situation as well. Caitlin confesses to Cisco that she took the cuffs and reveals her powers. She asks him to vibe her, and he sees the both of them battling each other in the future, with Caitlin having gone full Killer Frost. He lies and tells her that he saw nothing and promises not to tell the team about her powers. Back at the West household, Barry comes clean to all of them of everything in their Flashpoint lives. Wally leaves disappointed when he thinks that they're trying to keep him from getting his powers. Wally shows up at the CCPD after disappearing and apologizes to Joe for running off. Just as they're about to leave, he begins to see visions of Flashpoint and suffers a panic attack. The team conducts tests on Wally, and HR suggests that they put him in the pipeline until they can better protect him from Alchemy. Barry stays to watch over Wally while HR, Caitlin, and Cisco accompany Joe to his movie date with Cecile at Hoffer Park. Once they get there, Caitlin asks Cisco to tell the truth. He tells her about their future battle and suggests that they tell the team. She refuses out of fear and walks away. Joe becomes distracted while he is with Cecile, and he tells her that he is worried about his children. Back at Star Labs, Barry and Iris watch over Wally while talking about his predicament. Later at Hoffer Park, during the movie, Shade attacks and Barry rushes to get there. Barry fights Shade while the rest of the team lights up the park. Caitlin hands him the dampening cuffs, and they take Shade in. Alchemy takes the chance to contact Wally and promises to give him his powers. He continues to suffer from the visions and then starts yelling at Iris to let him out. Worried about her brother, she opens a pipeline and he attacks her. Iris is forced to knock him out, and when the team gets there, they decide to keep him in a pipeline. Cisco pressures Caitlin into telling them all about her powers, which she does. She leaves upset, but Barry goes to talk to her. He apologizes for creating Flashpoint and changing all of their lives. Wally suggests that they use Alchemy, trying to reach out to him to their advantage, so that they can catch him. They agree to have Wally be the bait for Alchemy, as his episodes continue to worsen. Caitlin apologizes to Cisco, and he promises to help her after they deal with Alchemy. Wally leads Barry, Joe, and a few officers to Alchemy's lair, while the rest of the team look on from Star Labs. After a brief struggle in which Alchemy nearly kills Barry, they manage to corner him. An unseen speedster attacks everyone, and Alchemy tells Wally to grab the Philosopher's Stone. He merges with the speedster, who calls himself Savitar, and then attacks Barry. How will Barry save Wally from Savitar? How crazy is it that Wally is Savitar? What is Dr. Alchemy's plan now? Can Barry save Caitlin from becoming Killer Frost? Or will her battle with Cisco take place soon? Are you excited for the crossover between Supergirl, Flash, Arrow, and Legends? Find out on the next episode of The Flash. Alchemy gets away while Joe tries to save Barry from Savitar, but he cannot see him. Savitar begins to savagely beat Barry across the city, so HR proposes that Caitlin and Cisco use their powers to save him. Cisco opens up a breach, bringing them to the waterfront, and Caitlin freezes Savitar, saving Barry. Back at Star Lab, Barry thanks them, and Caitlin begins to show signs of her Killer Frost side. They then check on Wally, who is still trapped in a black and red cocoon. Caitlin tells them that he is in a coma-like state and that he may be evolving. Joe leaves disappointed in the fact that he cannot do anything to help his son. He goes to the CCPD and interrogates one of Alchemy's acolytes. Caitlin shows up and tells him that Wally is out of the cocoon. She has him go ahead, but she stays behind to ask the acolyte where Alchemy is. Julian bumps into her, so she is forced to abduct him. When Joe arrives back at Star Labs, the team realizes that Caitlin lied about Wally's condition. Barry rushes to the CCPD to get to her, but it is too late. Caitlin takes Julian to a frozen food warehouse and forces him to help her find Dr. Alchemy. The team tries to figure out why she took Julian and where she is. Cisco finds her, and Barry stops her from killing Julian. She tells Barry that the reason she is trying to find Alchemy is so that he can get rid of her powers. Barry promises that they will all do their best to help her, but she angrily blames him for everything. He saves her from being killed by the CCPD, but she stabs him with an icicle before telling him to stay out of the way. While Barry tries to recover, Cisco lashes out at him for creating Flashpoint and ruining their lives. Cisco, Joe, and HR get the locations of the other acolytes, so they head out to see if Caitlin will show up at one of them, while Iris stays with Barry. Caitlin shows up at the location Cisco is at and threatens to kill the acolyte and his family if he does not help her find Alchemy. The acolyte reveals that Alchemy is just like the rest of them, and they all serve Savitar. Cisco confronts Caitlin and tries to reason with her. While she is attacking him, Barry arrives and tries to subdue her. She kisses him and nearly kills Barry when Cisco uses his concussive blast to knock her unconscious. He tells Barry to vibrate to reverse the effects of the frozen kiss. They bring her back to Star Labs and lock her in the pipeline. Barry promises that they will all do their best to help her, but Caitlin continues to blame him for everything. After a motivating talk from Iris, they head to the Cortex where they find Joe and HR trying to break Wally out of the cocoon. They find Wally having transformed into a speedster. Barry realizes that Wally isn't all there, but before he can talk to him, Wally runs off. He talks to Caitlin as she is the only one with the knowledge to help and releases her from the pipeline. He tells her that she is free to go as long as she kill him. She's unable to go through with it and turns back to normal. She gives Barry a serum to help stabilize Wally when they find him at his old house. With everything back to normal, an ecstatic Wally trains to hone his powers with the team. Barry talks to Cisco, and the latter remains unsure of where their friendship stands. Barry then talks to Julian and tries to convince him not to say anything about Caitlin. He agrees to do so as long as Barry quits his job, as he believes that his moral compass has been compromised. Though he is visibly disappointed, Barry agrees and Julian keeps his word when being questioned by Detective Patterson. Iris and Joe hear about Barry quitting, and Joe realizes the reason. Barry tells him that he would sacrifice everything to protect everyone he loves and promises that he'll be okay. day, back at the hospital, Julian's contacted by Savitar, who he tries to run from. Savitar finds him and tells him to serve him once again. Julian goes to the CCPD and it is revealed that he is Dr. Alchemy when he obtains a suit which he had hidden. What will Barry do now that he doesn't have a job? Did they all just save Caitlin from really turning into Killer Frost? Will she be another hero? Will Cisco ever forgive Barry? What will happen now that Wally has his powers? Will Harry and Jesse ever come back? Or is HR here to stay? How is Joe gonna feel now that he has 2 speedsters to deal with as sons? Will Jake Garrick ever come back soon? How will Barry and the team stop Savitar? How excited are you for the crossover between Supergirl, Flash, Arrow, and Legends? How about that Dr. Alchemy reveal? Find out on the next episode of The Flash. The episode starts with Barry and Oliver fighting against Supergirl, Team Arrow, and the Legends. Back in the present, Wally continues to get faster, but Iris asks the team not to encourage him for the fear of him getting hurt. Caitlin then tries to help mend Barry and Cisco's friendship, but the latter remains cold. HR tries again to convince the team to make the Star Labs Museum when they're interrupted by an alert of a meteor heading towards downtown Central City. Barry rushes there and finds a spaceship instead. An army of the alien race called the Dominators emerge from the ship and spread throughout the city. The next day, the news try to bend the story by saying it was a government aircraft that crashed. Barry meets with Lila, who knows that it was the Dominators. She goes with him to Star Labs and explains the aliens' origins to the team. Lila tells him to sit on the sidelines, but Barry plans to bring in some help. He goes to Star City, where he saves Diggle and Oliver from being killed by Vigilante, who they're going after. He then tells them that he needs their help, so they recruit the Legends and Supergirl as well. Barry and Cisco bring Kara back to their Earth, where all the heroes meet at the Star Labs Hall. Kara gets to know everyone, and tells them that she is familiar with the Dominators. Oliver proposes that they train by fighting Kara, and makes Barry the team leader. Later, Stein and Jax reveal the message to Barry that his future self sent to Rip from 2056. He tells them and Oliver about Flashpoint and how it changed everyone's lives. Stein has another vision and asks Caitlin to accompany him to his home. When he arrives, he finds out that the woman from his visions is his daughter. The team begin their training, and Kara showcases her abilities. Lila then meets with the President and the DOD when the Dominators attack. They then abduct the President. Back at Star Labs, Wally talks to Iris and Joe, and he tells them that he is angry because he doesn't think anyone has faith in him. HR overhears the argument, and Wally asks for his help to train him, but the former declines. During their training session, Cisco finds a message Barry's future self sent, forcing Barry to tell them all about the Flashpoint. Everyone but Kara and Oliver scold him for meddling with the timeline. Oliver decides to stay with Barry, while everyone, led by Kara, helps Lila save the President. They head to the location and find the President, but it turns out to be a trap. A Dominator kills the President and activates a device that releases a red mist affecting the team. Back at Star Labs, Oliver tells Barry he must accept what he had done and move forward. Cisco calls and shows him footage of the team destroying the city. Barry and Oliver find themselves having to fight their friends. Barry takes on Ray, Kara, and Firestorm, while Oliver takes on Diggle, Sarah, Thea, and Mick. Wally appears and tries to help, but is seriously injured by Kara. Barry has Kara chase after him, while Oliver gets Wally to safety. Barry gets Kara to destroy the device, and everyone turns back to normal. When Wally gets back to Star Labs, he gets a lecture from his family, and HR agrees to train him. The team forgives Barry, and while they're heading out to meet Lila, everyone but him are abducted by the Dominators. All aboard the hype train of Day 2 of the DC TV crossover between Supergirl, The Flash, Arrow, and Legends. Who will Barry enlist to help him, saving his friends from the Dominators? How trippy is it that the OG Team Arrow is going to be seeing former members like Laurel Lance, Mama and Papa Queen, Slade, and possibly Tommy? Will the new recruits of Team Arrow and members of Team Flash help Barry? How are they going to stop the Dominators? Is Stein's wife Clarissa dead? Will Kara tell Barry about Project Medusa, which they could use to help take down the Dominators? Find out on the next episode of The Flash. In a flashback, Julian and his team are on an excavation when they discover an artifact. He opens a box containing the Philosopher's Stone, which releases Savitar. In the present, Team Flash try to celebrate the holidays, but the looming threat of Savitar and alchemy keeps them from feeling the Christmas spirit. They discover that Julian may have answers as to who Savitar and alchemy may be, so Barry goes to talk to him. Julian tells him about his expedition that turned out nothing, and that Savitar is the first metahuman speed. He then lies to Barry about finding the artifact on the trip. On Earth 3, Jay Garrick tries to stop the trickster when Barry appears to help. He then asks Jay for his help with Savitar. Jay tells him the evil speedster's origins and that Savitar is preparing to battle Barry because he sees him as a threat. He then agrees to help Barry stop him. Jay then tells him to spend time with his loved ones in the meantime. Cisco begins to see hallucinations of Dante, and he tells Caitlin. He shares memory of Dante, and she shares memories of her dad. Iris finds out that Julian lied about finding the Philosopher's Stone, so Barry goes to confront him. The team then get an alert of alchemy using the stone, so Jay goes with Barry. Wally asks to come along and tries to get HR to tell the team about their training sessions. Barry refuses to let him come along and says that they will have to talk when they return. When the Scarlet Speedsters arrive, Jay battles Savitar while Barry takes on alchemy. As Savitar is about to kill Jay, Barry locks the stone away, causing the evil speedster to vanish. Barry unmasks alchemy and is shocked to find out he is Julian. Barry locks him in a pipeline, and when he wakes, Julian refuses to admit he is alchemy. Cisco tells Barry that the box containing the stone is made up of nothing he's ever seen before. Later, after an argument between the Wests, Joe tells Barry that Wally has been acting as if someone else is thinking for him. Barry thinks that Julian is in control of his actions as alchemy and decides to reveal himself as a Flash. After Barry gains his trust, Julian confesses that he had suffered blackouts and tells him the truth of what happened in the excavation. Cisco sees Dante, who tells him to open the box so that they can be together again. He opens it and Savitar is released. The team watch as Barry is savagely beaten by Savitar, so Wally rushes to save him. Caitlin tries to convince Cisco to close the box or the two will die. He closes it just in time to save them. Later, the team set up a rig so that they can confirm that Savitar is using Julian as his puppet. The tech works and Savitar begins speaking through Julian. Savitar tells him that he knows everything about all of them. He then tells them that one of them will betray the team and one of them will fall. He then reveals that future Barry had trapped him and he was going to get get his revenge. Jay proposes that they throw it into the Speed Force since they cannot destroy the box. When Barry launches the box, a shockwave sends him 5 months into the future. He sees Savitar kill Iris in front of his future self, but is then pulled back to the present by Jay. Jay tells a worried Barry that the future isn't set, but it doesn't mean he can control what will happen. He returns to Earth 3, and the team go to the Wests to celebrate Christmas. The team give Wally his Kid Flash uniform as a gift, and Julian shows up to join them. Cisco worries when he sees Caitlin using her powers to make it snow, but she assures him that she can control it. Barry then takes Iris to the new apartment, and they profess their love for each other. How happy are you that the Flash ended on a happy note? Why didn't Jay Garrick join them for Christmas? What will happen now that the box containing Savitar is trapped in the Speed Force? Maybe this is where it all started. Who is Savitar? What are his origins, and why did he keep saying, I am the future Flash? Now that Wally has been accepted by Barry to be part of the team, what will happen to him? Will Jesse Quick and Harry come back? Will Jay come back if Savitar comes back? And can Barry prevent the future of Iris dying? Will Julian don the alchemy mask once again, but this time pick up the name of Mr. Element? And will Cisco and Caitlin suit up? The next time that we see them, who's the person that will betray the team? And who's the one that will fall? We'll find out in the next episode of The Flash. Returns in a month and a half.